One of my favorite things in the world to do is watch Friends. I know it's been off for years and years. It's not even around, but I still find myself binge watching old episodes. And I was thinking about this today and thinking, it's the predictability of the friends in the circle, right? You have Chandler with his quirkiness, Monica with her type A of just everything has to be so neat and tidy and organized. It's Phoebe's ability to make you laugh at her silly songs. Ross always comes in with those smart comments, and Joey and him and his food, like it is just so hilarious. And of course, Rachel, she just brings everybody together, and it's just such this beautiful, cohesive team of people. And it's why I wanted to come on and share with you today that I have an opportunity for you to find your friends in the content creation space. So if you are thinking about creating your first or your next digital course, I don't want you to miss this opportunity because Amy Porterfield just opened the doors for registration for her Course Confident Bootcamp. And I'm actually offering a special bonus for anyone that registers for the Course Confident Bootcamp through my special link. So I want you to go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register. That's crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And what you're going to find when you get there is I have this special bonus private podcast series. It's called Money Mindset for Creators. So I want you to go register for Amy's bootcamp, download the podcast, and immediately start listening to it, because what this training is set up to do is to help you get your mind right about monetizing your content, making money so that you can fuel your content creation dreams. So go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register for Course Confident. And I cannot wait for you to find your friends and find the people that will be there for you. Do you see what I did there? Yeah, nice little friends segue connection. Go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And I cannot wait to see you inside. Okay, let's get into today's episode. Do you have an online business? Do you want to create one? Are you in the process of building your empire? Well, if so, you are going to absolutely love today's conversation with Deadline Funnel founder Jack Bourne. We had so much fun in this conversation talking about authentic marketing and what it's like to create businesses and create a product that people need, that people actually want to buy, and that your customers are excited to talk about. So I hope you enjoy today's conversation with Jack Bourne. Welcome to the Profit Podcast, where we teach entrepreneurs how to start, launch, and market their podcast. I'm your host, Crystal Profit, and I'm so excited that you're here. Thanks for hanging out with me today, because if you've been trying to figure out the world of podcasting, think of this show as the time-saving shortcut you've been looking for. So let's get right to it, shall we? All right, Profit Podcast listeners, I'm so excited for Jack to be joining us today from Australia. So welcome to the show, Jack.
Great to be here. I think everyone will quickly recognize I don't have the Aussie accent, so sorry for the curveball, but I'm a U.S. citizen. We took my family 3 years ago, and we hightailed it to Australia. Didn't know COVID was happening, but it turned out to be a good place to hide out for a bit.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm so glad that we're getting to have another conversation. Jack and I actually, you'll have to go check out, and I'm going to link in the show notes too. We had an incredible conversation about podcasting and content creation over on the Deadline Funnels YouTube channel. So I'm going to link to that in the show notes. It was so fun. But today I really wanted to have Jack on the podcast to talk about marketing. It's something that everybody knows I love. I always talk about marketing, but specifically authentic marketing, because I wanted to just give you a bunch of kudos, Jack, because with Deadline Funnel, I think that this is something that y'all do so well. But I'm curious, where does that stem from? Did you have a really bad experience in the past and you're like, I never want that to happen to my customers? Like, where does that come from?
Yeah, I've never thought about that question, but now that you're asking it, I think that so I came up when internet marketing was like really in its early stages, and I've seen the evolution, and where we're at these days is much better. There's a lot more heart-centered entrepreneurs. I think your audience is probably full of people who really just want to reach a wide audience. They've got a message to get out into the world. There was a little bit more of a sort of an edge or a ruthlessness to early days internet marketing, and I think I'm glad that I saw those days, but I think that really shaped me in terms of not wanting to emulate that, and just trying to get the message across, but come across in a way where people could really sense that this is true and this is real. And I know that's a struggle. You and I were talking just before we hit record. That's a struggle for a lot of people, where they think, look, I want to spread the word, but I'm not the type of person who likes to talk about myself all the time and brag and talk about how great I am. And sometimes people struggle with that. And so that's a real challenge. And so I think when it comes to, marketing, a lot of creators know what they want to say to their audience, and they know they have a mission. They've got something that they want to tell the world. They know that they're changing lives, but they're not used to talking about themselves and their stuff. And so how do you part of them is holding back because, I don't want to come off as narcissistic and having a big ego and, just sounding like a pushy salesperson. But I also want to get the word out there. So you can see how these two things are fighting against each other, because if you're psychologically holding yourself back, you're not going to do everything you can to get the message out there. So I think that's a big struggle for a lot of creators out there.
Yeah, I think it has so much to do with the fact that when people are just getting started, it's a little confusing about, especially those solo podcasters that may be listening right now. They're like, how do I talk to an audience and pretend that they're there and not make it about me? Because I'm going to be telling my stories and talking about the things that are important to me. But how do I approach my marketing without just saying, I'm amazing, you should listen to the content that I'm creating? And I think that you're right. It's a struggle. But I think that when it comes to the foundation principles of marketing, authenticity is something that I know you and I both just have that in common. And it's one of the reasons why I was really drawn to Deadline Funnel and what y'all stand for. So one of the questions that I would really just love to know is if you're seeing any trends in the online business space that y'all are excited about, maybe something that's coming up on the horizon or something you've seen in the last 6 months that you're like, oh man, this could really be a game changer in the future.
Well, I don't think that. So where my mind immediately goes is not something that is just starting to happen. So this is not breaking news, but I really think that doing live content and really being able to see two people interacting. I mean, even if someone is watching this video later on, it was recorded live. It's obviously not scripted, and so you get a real sense of who the person is and just where they're coming from, just based on little cues that we may not even be able to describe, like why do I trust that person or why do I not? But you pick up on those cues because it's really been hardwired into our system a long time. We just know intuitively how to pick up on these things, even if we can't describe it. And so getting on video, doing lives, or for some people it's a webinar, even if it's recorded and watched at a later time, I really feel like that really communicates really well. And the role of marketing is to not bring everyone to you. It's actually to polarize your audience and to bring the people that resonate with you and your message. And let's face it, there are people that are not going to resonate with your message, and that's actually the way that it's supposed to be. If you stand for everything, then you don't really stand for anything. So You really need to have a specific message and be able to communicate, this is what I'm for and this is what I'm not for. One of the things that I think we've done really well with our marketing is that I really lean very heavily on our client case studies and testimonials. And, it's one thing for me to record a video and talk about, look, these are the changes that my clients are happening. This is why I built the software that we've built, et cetera, et cetera. And that's useful and powerful. It's very great. It's great to see from the founder or the solo entrepreneur exactly why they did this. What's the origin story? But even more powerful, I think, is hearing it from clients themselves. And so, for example, if you were to go to our case studies page at deadlinefunnel.com, you could see a lot of these testimonials, but I would ask you to look for one of my favorite ones, which is from Abby Ashley. And I still remember exactly where I was and what was happening when we did this case study. I was on vacation in Sydney, and I was out on the porch, and I almost missed the call because it was in the holiday, and it was at 7 a.m. my time. I'm staring directly into the sun, and I've got my laptop, and I'm trying not to squint, and it's burning my retinas. And I don't know what Abby's going to say. I just know that she's a happy client, and so we're doing this interview. And you can see all this, like if you watch me, you can tell like I'm trying to hold my eyes open and not squint, but they're burning. So Abby starts telling this story of how she had this $10,000 a month business. She was getting some coaching, and our coach said, "Hey, you've got to add this software into your business, Deadline Funnel." And when she did, she said, "I didn't do any extra advertising, and the next month I did $60,000 of revenue." And you can see the surprise on my face. I'm like, holy cow, that's incredible. So, and her reaction is she's just filled with joy, and she's just speaking from her soul. And, capturing that on video and then being able to share that with your prospective audience, really delivers. I mean, it's so much more powerful than the most powerful headline. Like, headlines are important. Hiring great copywriters is important, but really getting your audience to speak for you in a way that's just completely genuine and authentic, and capturing that magic on camera, to me, that is really the secret sauce of coming across as authentic and really dissolving the objections or the concerns or the anxiety, like, okay, is this really going to help my business? When you see the number of testimonials, not talking about Deadline Funnel, but for example, in your business or someone else's business, if you see 50 testimonials and no matter which one you click on, it's a really authentic video, and the people are having fun, and they're just so excited about the change that's happening in their life because of this program. You don't need to read the sales copy. It almost doesn't matter. Like, okay, what exactly am I getting with this? Look, I want that change. I want what she has. It's sort of the Meg Ryan, something about. No, it's not something about Mary. What was the Meg Ryan movie where she has the she pretends to have? I hope this is okay to say, but it happened in the movie. She pretends to have the orgasm in the restaurant, and the woman at the table next door goes, "I want what she's having." So you want your clients to, your leads and your prospective clients who are visiting your web pages, clicking on your links, attending your webinars, and listening to your podcast, to hear these transformations from the clients themselves and go, I want what he's having. I want what she's having. Like, I want that type of transformation, because it almost doesn't matter at that point is it software? Is it training? Is it both? Like, who cares? Like, if you can do that for that person, and you've got 50 more of these testimonials, there's probably 10 times as many people who are having that transformation, or 100 times as many people, but these are the ones that you have on your page. I'm sold. I'm in. And so I don't think people do testimonials really the right way. There's sort of an art and a science to it, but when you get it right, I really feel like that is super powerful. And I'll hand it over to you, but I think there's a place that we could go from there with regards to how do I spread the word about what I'm doing without sounding like I'm talking about me all the time. But why don't I hand it over to you, because I've been doing a lot of the talking.
No, it's perfectly fine. This is what I love about having podcast guests. And I actually, while you were sharing about that, I was just kind of taken back to my very first experience with Deadline Funnel. So I had actually heard you on a podcast. You had done a podcast interview, and the person that was, it was Amy Porterfield. You were on her show, and you had set up this incredible funnel that I really I want to talk about this for a second, because anybody that's listening that's thinking about guesting on a podcast, they need to go back and listen to your interview on Amy Porterfield's show, because I think that you did this so well, where you said, hey, if you're listening to this, then go here and you'll get, a trial of Deadline Funnel. And that's awesome. But what I really want to hone in on is what you said about having a message from the founder. And I got to be honest, that's really why I signed up for Deadline Funnel. Because I loved hearing the experience that she had and how she uses it in her evergreen funnel and her business. But seeing that message from you, and now that I think about it, I think that you were on vacation in that video too.
We were in the United States.
I love how you just, you just like, you pull out your phone or whatever. You're just like, hey, hey, I'm Jack, and this is a little bit about Deadline Funnel, and this is why you should try it out. But you're so right in actions speak louder than words. And I think that y'all have done a fantastic job in just creating a really awesome product that people are happy to brag about. So we've talked a lot about Deadline Funnel, but can you kind of give the audience a little more clarity around what your product actually is and how it helps people?
Yeah, sure. So the reason why I created Deadline Funnel is because 6 or 7 years ago, as a course creator myself, and also I was on the team, I was the marketing manager for a guy named Perry Marshall, who's a thought leader in sort of the AdWords Facebook space. So we both had a challenge, which is that we were big into lead generation. At the time, it wasn't, everyone's into lead generation now. We understand the value of getting someone on your list and then developing know, like, and trust. Roll back the clock 6, 7, 8 years, and it wasn't as obvious. Driving traffic from Google was extremely cheap, and so why would I want to spend the extra energy building a list? Well, Perry was a big believer in getting people on your list and developing a relationship with them over time, as was I. The challenge was that as a student of persuasion and marketing, I know that one of the most solid triggers that you can get to get someone to take action is to have a deadline. And if you think about it, no matter what market you're in, everyone listening is in the business of changing lives, okay? But people are very resistant to change. Like, we want the change, but at the same time, we're scared. We're a little bit afraid. We procrastinate. That's just human beings, and we're selling to human beings. You have to understand that. So human nature being what it is, there's all these people that are reading your emails, attending your Facebook Lives, looking at your social media posts, clicking on your email links, et cetera, et cetera. And yes, some people are buying, but there's so many more people who just are procrastinating. So the challenge was, could we incorporate a deadline without it being BS? Could we incorporate a deadline with and still use marketing automation? Because the power of marketing automation is that instead of just, it's sort of like if you're in a bike race and you say, okay, you can only pedal for a minute and then you got to coast for 10, and then pedal for a minute and coast for 10. That's doing launches. Whereas someone can pedal with less energy and less power, but if they're just pedaling all the time, you're constantly growing day after day, week after week. So that's the power of automation in your business. So how do you combine the two without slapping up a fake timer on your website and going, yeah, the deadline's tonight, just please don't come back tomorrow, because you're going to see the same deadline. So how do we do this without lying and falling into the trap of just saying, look, this is going to work, but it's also BS, right? So that was a challenge, but I just assumed that someone else had fixed this. The more searching I did, the more I realized, nope, no one has fixed this. And so I went about creating it. And so that's how Deadline Funnel was born. And so what Deadline Funnel does is that it helps course creators reach a bigger audience, make more sales. It's not convincing people who already weren't in tune with your message. It's not magic pixie dust that's going to take, crappy messaging and make it amazing. But what it does is it takes if you've got something working in your business at any level, it will magnify it. You just can't magnify a zero. So if you have something that is resonating with your audience, you just need more of the people who are paying attention to say yes and take that final step to become your client so that you can grow your business faster and reach a wider audience. That's what Deadline Funnel does.
Being a woman in business comes with its own unique set of challenges, but also so many opportunities. We get ahead by leaning in to what makes us different from business as usual. I'm Samantha Hartley, host of Profitable Joyful Consulting, inviting you to a special 6-episode series exploring the experience of being a woman in business. You want to hear from women consultants who've hit $1 million, who sell 6-figure engagements, or who've broken their own revenue ceilings? Yeah, those are my clients, and they'll be sharing too. Join me for 6 must-listen episodes that tackle key challenges for women consultants.
Follow Profitable Joyful Consulting on your favorite podcast app.
Yeah, this is such a great approach again to marketing, that authentic, like, hey, it's actually real. I love that. But also on the back end, it makes my life so much easier because I don't have to remember. It's like, okay, the cart's closing, especially for anybody, y'all. Don't close your carts at midnight. Are you really going to stay up until midnight and turn off those sales buttons? No, but you could do that and not have to worry about it because everything will redirect if you have deadline funnel. This is something that I use personally when I do my launches. I'll have my sales pages, and then as soon as they're done, they authentically switch to something else. They go to a waitlist page, or they go to my main page, or they say, hey, this offer has expired. And I just appreciate that it makes my life easier. So thank you. Because it's a great product and it really works. But I'm curious, do you see, like, as content creators, is there a way that we can kind of approach creating authentic marketing, but also driving demand for what we have to offer without being so in your face? I think that this question comes up a lot, especially for, I think a lot of our audience is newer business owners, and they have this timidity when it comes to selling. They're like, I don't want to be too aggressive, but I also want to use the right sales tactics. So what would you say to someone who's having that struggle right now?
Yeah, I love this question. So the most important thing is to stop thinking about what it is that you sell, okay? Because I say this, you probably heard me say this on Amy Porterfield's podcast. I say this all the time, which is no one, and I tell my team this quite often, they're tired of hearing it. No one woke up today saying, gosh, I hope that there's yet another software program that I can pop in my credit card and start paying monthly or annually for yet another software as a service. And yet we have thousands of clients. So why? Because what we sell is a delivery mechanism for a result. So whatever it is that you're selling, whether it's a coaching program, an online course, and you're doing actual done for you consulting, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is that you're selling, it is just a delivery mechanism for Life 2.0 or Them 2.0 of where they want to get to. So there's a transformation in between, and your job is to talk about the gap between where they are and where they want to be. So you're talking about them and their problems. So step number 1 is forget about the fact that you're selling stuff and it's the features and the benefits. Like, that's not the time for this. Talk about them and the problems that they have and the challenges. And the more that you can put that to words, whether it's written or whether it's on a podcast, so that someone says, oh my gosh, that is exactly the problem that I'm going through. It's freaking me out. It sounds like you are in my head because you understand my problems and you've described it in a way that is 100% spot on, but I've never explained it exactly that way, even to my spouse. But you just said it. Like, I am listening. I'm all ears. So once you can describe the problem and the frustration and the emotions that they're going through, then what I would do is it's not time yet to talk about it. And here's how you solve it with XYZ problem, right? That even sounds salesy. What you want to do is you want to talk about a change in thinking or a modification in their action. So in other words, not your product yet, but you're talking about what is the fundamental change. So for example, you might have a framework. And so like step 4 of that framework might be what you want to talk about on the podcast. And so if I were structuring a podcast, it would be, okay, what one single problem are we going to be addressing on this podcast? And I would open it up with words that would really bring someone in. So if someone has that problem, they're stopping what they're doing and they say, okay, this is what I need to listen to right now because this is exactly the problem that I have. Tell me how to solve this. And then I would talk about the one thing that you can, or the 3 things that you can do to fix that problem. Again, not yet talking about this, but then I would do this really cool twist that I teach in a program that we have called Stealth Selling, because we want to teach people how to sell without sounding salesy. And so what we do is, one of the things that I teach is then I talk about how someone solved that problem. So it would sound, I'm going to do this off the top of my head, but it would sound something like, I'm jumping into, we've already talked about the problem. So I'm just going to jump into, okay, so if that interests you today, I'm going to share with you point 3 of my 5-step ABC framework. And what is really cool is I'm going to share with you the story of Abby Ashley and how she took the concept that I'm going to teach you today and how she went from the same problem that I just described, and she was making $10,000 a month in her business, to instantly making $60,000 a month in her business just by applying the tip that I'm going to share with you in the next 30 minutes. So if you're ready, let's go ahead and jump in. Boom. They're like, okay, I'm sold. Now I'm not talking. So I've started by talking about their problem, the listener, and then I've linked it to a story about a client. So now I'm bringing in a testimonial of a client, and I've dropped. So just dropping in the fact that I have a client, I don't need to say, by the way, I have something to sell you, because they're a client. They obviously bought something. So even if this is your first podcast, you understand without me even saying it, oh, this person is in business doing something, but they're not interested in that yet, but you've already planted that seed. So it's not a big shock like, oh, okay, you're selling something. Like you're kind of dropping these little breadcrumbs, and people are learning about this as they go. But first you're talking about them, then you're talking about how, like, the specific idea, and how you're going to tell a story through one of your clients. And then you can bring it back to something like, hey, if that really interests you, you can learn about my 5-step framework. And step 3 is what we went over today. So just download the free framework at mysite.com/whatever. And so that could be the structure of the podcast, but it doesn't sound or feel salesy. And yet I'm resonating with the audience because I'm talking about their problems.
Yeah, this was I need like the mic drop, like a sound effect or something, because that was like a mini training in sales 101, and it was so good. So if anybody was just like, oh my gosh, hang on, and like go back and listen to everything that Jack just said, because it was so good. Because I think that the approach has to start with exactly what you were saying, is you're making it about them. It's not about you. It's never been about you. It is 100% about them and the version of themselves that they're trying to become, or the problem that they're trying to solve. And I think that anytime you start with that foundation in mind, like, you're going to win, even if they don't end up becoming a customer, but maybe they end up starting to follow you on social media and really start develop your content and then eventually become a customer. I think there's so much pressure to start an online business and make $1 million tomorrow. And I think that it gets a lot of people frustrated and impatient. And I just love this approach of leading with value and really the testimonial piece. I think that that's so key, and something that y'all do really well, again, with the testimonials with Deadline Funnel, but just saying, hey, my client or a member of our community or a previous student is something that's really helpful to plant that seed of credibility and authority. So this is so good. Jack, I actually wanted to ask you one more question, and this is going to be kind of silly one.
Sure.
But I'm a Deadline Funnel, like, I'm on y'all's email list. I see y'all's updates. And one of my favorite things is when you do test. So you will do a test of the product. I saw one of the videos you did where you bought a brand new iPad, and then you flew to, I can't remember if you flew to the States or you flew to Australia, but tell me about that, because you had your whole family involved in this video too. And I just thought it was so fun. Did they think, oh my gosh, what's Dad up to now? Like, what's going on? Tell us that story.
Yeah. So this kind of goes back to what I was talking about before. So if you zoom out from like why case studies, why testimonials, what it's doing is it's really a way to prove, like, this is real, that it's okay to yet have more hope that this is actually going to be the delivery mechanism that actually gets you that result. One of the things that people have doubts about, so step 1 is try to think about, you really need to step into the mind of your audience and be really brutally honest. Like, okay, if I was that skeptic who thought, okay, everything that person says, I don't believe it. Like, who says so? Who says so? How do I know that that's true? So so once you go through that list, For us, it was, okay, you say that the tracking is accurate from device to device. I don't want to look like a sleazy marketer. I don't want to look like, someone clicks on the link on day 5 and they arrive and it says you've got 10 days left, right? I want to make sure that this thing is super accurate and not make me look like an idiot. So how do we prove that? Well, I came up with this idea. We were visiting family in the States. And so I decided at like 4:30 a.m. when we're in the airport feeding our face before we got on this flight, hey, I know what, I'll real quick set this up so that I can log in and like start myself as a lead in this active campaign sequence. And so I turn on the camera and you see my family goofing off in the background. And so I do that. And then we get on the plane. And 2 days later, I'm driving with my daughter to the nearest Apple store, and it's actually this iPad. We went and purchased it, and I unwrapped it, unboxed it right there, do the quick Apple changeover, yes, bring everything over, and I load up my Gmail, and it shows there's only X number of hours left on this 5-day campaign, which was the right amount of time. And so right there, you see proof that everything worked. So we're in a completely different country on a completely new device that came out of the box. So this is one of those things. It's sort of like, I don't want to come off as an infomercial person, but one of the things that infomercials do really well is they have these demonstrations that just wow you. You're like, oh my God, if that knife can cut through the steel pipe and then cut through the tomato, like obviously it's going to work. Like you just saw it with your own eyes. So I don't want to come off as infomercially, but I think again, what they do really well is the proof that's hard to discount, right? And so if you go, I wanted to do a demonstration where someone thought, okay, if it works for that, then it's going to work for my clients who are staying local, but they're going to be in line in Starbucks and checking their email. Hey, today's the last day. When they click through, I know it's going to work. I know Deadline Funnel is going to work because I saw that crazy demonstration. So, I don't know if it's applicable for everyone's business, but I think it's a great thought exercise to go through and think, okay, what is that last bit of doubt that someone, that I can somehow overcome? What sort of thing could I record or do that would really just completely eliminate all doubt, where you think, okay, on top of the testimonials, on top of the case studies, there's this crazy demonstration. Okay, if I don't buy, it's not because I don't believe that this is going to work. It's obviously going to work. Maybe I'm not ready for it, but just by eliminating the doubt and the anxiety, you're going to get a lot more people who are coming in. And besides, it adds a little bit of drama. Like, hey, is this going to work? What's going to happen when Jack arrives in Australia? So, it's storytelling.
Yeah, well, I loved it. I thought it was fantastic marketing. So again, I just wanted to give you some kudos that I saw the video and I was impressed. I was like, this is, from a video, like I don't call myself a videographer, but I do some YouTube and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a great vlogging video. So I thought you did a great job with your family there and like telling the story. It was really cool. But I just so appreciate you being here with us today, Jack. And I actually want to move into, I have a rapid fire question segment that we do. There's 3 questions. Okay. So I didn't prepare you, but I promise these will be pretty painless. So Are you ready?
I think so. We'll see.
Okay. Well, the first one is, what piece of advice would you give to a brand new podcaster?
I would give this advice to anyone who's starting a new venture, and that is to understand fully the 80-20 principle and understand that you can't do all the things. And you got to focus on the things that are really going to move the needle. When you focus on the big stuff and you get the big stuff right, the little stuff takes care of itself. And sometimes taking care of itself means that you're never going to do it. Sometimes it means that you did the big stuff right. And so even though it wasn't perfect, it was working so well that now you can afford to bring on the VA or the team to be able to handle those little things. So I guess my follow-up piece of advice would be, no one gets to the top of the mountain alone, and so you have to bring on really quality team members to help you out. And that might not be day one, but most people, myself included, wait way longer than you should have. And your first hire may not be a success, your second hire may not be a success, but once you get it, once you find that person who can really take stuff off of your plate, and when I hand it to so-and-so, it's going to get taken care of. They're sharp, they're A+. it completely changes your business. So I think both of those go hand in hand. So I kind of cheated. I gave two.
That's good. That's good. Those were great answers. Great answers. Well, this next question is a two-part question.
Okay.
And it is, what is the dream podcast that you would love to be on? And if you were to interview someone, who would be your dream guest?
Okay. Dream, I'll start with the second one. So dream guest would either be Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos. I know Jeff Bezos is not like there's some complications with the way that he treats his workers, but the dude has some things to explain about business. Like, I'm not saying either one of them is a saint. I don't necessarily want to make my life a carbon copy of theirs, but I think that they have some things to share, and it would be really fascinating to talk to them. So I'm not oblivious to some of the issues that they have and skeletons in their in their closet. So dream podcast, are you asking an existing podcast that I want to be on, or?
Yeah. If there was someone that just called you up tomorrow and said, Jack, I would love for you to be a guest on my show, what is that podcast?
Man. Okay, I'm going to aim high. I think it would be hilarious and fun and exhilarating to be on the Joe Rogan podcast.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's a great one. See, these are great. I always love to hear people's answers to these questions. Okay. My final question is, do you consider yourself a perfectionist?
Oh, I'm a recovering perfectionist. It's something that, this could be another tip. You really have to, my advice to my younger self is get over this perfectionist BS, because perfection is like marching towards the horizon. The further you go, the further it gets away from you. There is no such thing as reaching the horizon. There is no such thing as perfect. And the sooner you get your idea out into the market, as Seth Godin calls it, shipping. So you need to ship your product, ship your work, until you get it out in the hands of people who can say, I love what you're doing, or I love what you're doing, but could you make these changes? That's when things really start to accelerate. You start to learn. And this fear of failure is really holding a lot of people back, because, there's so many things that we do that are really just a giant mask that we tell ourselves, or is like we're fooling ourselves. Hey, the reason why I'm not shipping this is, well, because I got to change the headline. I have to change the video. I have to make sure that this is perfect and that's perfect, because I take pride in my work. And I'm not saying don't take pride in your work, but if you're really being honest with yourself, you're delaying getting your thing, your podcast, your product, your whatever in the hands of the market because you're scared. And it's okay to be scared, but you need to push through it, because pushing through it and getting your stuff out into the marketplace and getting some feedback that might be hard to hear is how you grow and change and develop your 1,000 true fans. So I would tell my younger self, stop it with the perfectionism. It's just procrastination. Get out there and do it and get it out into the hands of the clients.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So you brought in a master selling 101 as well as overcoming perfection. Like, you're just bringing all the nuggets today, Jack, and I so appreciate it. Well, is there any one particular place where you want people to connect with you or learn more about all the fun things that y'all are doing over at Deadline Funnel?
Yeah, I would say go to deadlinefunnel.com. If anything that I said resonates with you and you want to give it a try, we've got a 14-day free trial. Of course, you should use the link that I'm sure you'll provide, because what we'll do is we will give you a longer trial. You just need to contact our team. And once you say that, hey, I came from the Crystal Profit podcast, we'll boost your trial so you get a longer trial. We want to make sure that you're happy. Again, we know that you didn't wake up saying, oh, yay, another thing that I can sign up for. But if it helps you grow your business, then we want you to experience it, and our team is here to help you. So I would say go over there. We have a lot of cool things. We just launched a new community that we're getting off the ground, and we have other platforms for creators that I'm not ready to announce yet, but it's literally just weeks away. We've got some stuff. One of the things we've been working on for 3 years, and I think it's going to really shake up the industry. So I'm super, super excited.
That's awesome. Well, we will be on the lookout for those. Everyone, I'm going to have a link in the show notes to where you can connect with Deadline Funnel. And Jack, I thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom on the podcast today.
Thank you so much. This was a ton of fun, and you're a great host.
That was such a great chat. Oh my gosh. I was just thinking back to when I was sitting there with Jack, and I just felt like it was a masterclass over and over again in selling and marketing. And I hope that you learned something today. And if you are in the process of launching in the next 2 months, in the next 6 months, in the next 12 months, and you're thinking, man, I really want to have a part of my funnel or my launch sequence that really drives urgencies for your customers to take action, I hope that you check out Deadline Funnel. I've been using it for 2 years at this point. Like, I was crazy. I was looking back and I was like, oh, I've been using it for about a year. I've been using it for 2 years at this point, and it just keeps getting better and better. So I want you to go check it out. Go to crystalprofit.com/deadline for a free trial. I use this in my evergreen funnel as well as even my recent launch and promotion. Whenever I'm doing countdown timers and I want to redirect pages, it just makes everything so much easier. So again, go to crystalprofit.com/deadline to try it out for free. But I want you to go to today's show notes as well. If you want to learn more about Jack and connect with him, you're going to find a few resources there. So you can go to crystalprofit.com/episode 327. But that's all I have for you today. So if this is your first time tuning in, make sure you hit the subscribe or follow button wherever you're listening to this podcast. And I would love to know what you thought about today's episode. Tag me, tag Jack on social media, and let us know what you thought. But that's all I have for you today. So as always, remember, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere. Hey, Profit Podcast listeners. Thanks for sticking around to a little bit after the episode to hear this special message, because I want to hear from you. We are starting a new segment called Fan Mail Shoutouts, and I want to hear from you, and I want to hear your questions. What do you want to know? What questions have you been dying to ask me? So here's how to make this happen. Go to the app where you're listening to this podcast right now. Go there. I'll wait a second. Okay. Now, once you're there, you're going to see a hyperlink at the top of the episode description that says, send Crystal a text message. And that's all I want you to do. Send me a text. It could be casual, informal. It could be totally anonymous. Or if you want, you can include your name and the name of your podcast or content wherever you are creating, and I will give you a special shout out in an upcoming episode. So again, go to the show notes for where you're listening to this episode right now, and it will say, send Crystal a text message. And I cannot wait to hear from you and give you a shout out in an upcoming segment of Fan Mail Shoutouts.